Hello dear learners, welcome back to another lecture in this MOOC of Population and Society. I am Ashirvad Chakravarti, a guest lecturer in the Department of Sociology, Gauhati University. Now in the previous module, we had discussed in detail about measuring birth and fertility as variables of demography. We discussed the significance of measuring birth and fertility as well as the different variants of indicators that exist. While discussing the formulae and methods, we also saw the empirical data pertaining to India, South Asia, as well as the world. In this particular module, we shall move on to the second variable of mortality that acts as a significant factor of population dynamics. Now, in contemporary demographic analysis, measuring mortality has become essential as it has been primarily responsible in the reducing population growth rate across the globe. The health and well-being of a population and a society as a whole can be inferred from a variety of death rates. These indicators are important metrics for evaluating how diseases, healthcare systems, and socio-economic factors affect people's survival rates and life expectancy. Now, we understand that live birth occurs when a baby is fully isolated from its mother or when a conceived child exhibits signs of life, including breathing, blood flow, and muscle contraction. Mortality would then naturally be defined as death after live birth. Now, the first index of mortality that we shall see is the crude death rate. The crude death rate is the most basic mortality indicator, representing the number of deaths per 1,000 people in a given population over a specific time period. While informative, the crude death rate does not account for age distribution and can be influenced by age structures of a particular population. Now, it is a ratio of the total registered deaths in a specified year to the total mid-year population, which is then multiplied by the constant of 1,000, because it is calculated over 1,000 mid-year population. Now, let us take an example to calculate the crude death rate for a country A, for the year 1997. As you can see, we consider the total number of deaths during 1997, which is from January 1st to December 31st, to be 61,931, and the total population at the middle of the year, that is the mid-year population, on July 1st, 1997, to be 65,51,000. Now, if you apply the formula that is on your screen, the crude death rate for that country for the year 1997 would be 9.45. Now, a crude death rate or a CDR of 9.45 means that for every 1,000 people living in that particular country in 1997, 9.45 deaths took place. Therefore, the crude death rate is a single figure that represents the frequency of deaths across entire population. To put this concept alongside real-life empirical evidences, the data according to the United Nations Population Division displayed by the World Bank suggests that the global average crude death rate in 2021 was 9. Bulgaria had the highest CDR with 22 compared to Qatar and UAE, that is the United Arab Emirates. Now, when it comes to South Asia, as you can see from the table, India posited a CDR of 9.45, followed by Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan. This data is retrieved from the World Bank for the year 2021. Now, the crude death rate can have three vital usages for a demographer. The CDR offers one of the foundations for calculating the rate of population growth that occurs naturally, the other one being the birth rate. The second reason is that it is widely available across various demographic investigations and fields. Third, it provides us with a broad understanding of the mortality trend over time in a specific area. However, the crude death rate has its limitations as well. It does not take into account the age, sex details of any death. Additionally, as a measure of mortality, the CDR is criticized to be inadequate in covering all the death statistics. In order to interpret the crude death rate, the population age-sex pyramid which is a graphical representation of the distribution of the population by standard age groups, which is typically 5-year groups, is useful. Usually, the population pyramid is made up of two bar graphs that are placed back to back, with the population size in each age group on the horizontal axis and the age groups on the vertical axis. As you can see on your screen, traditionally men are portrayed on the left and women on the right. The bars can show percentages of the total population, whether male or female, in each 5-year age group, or more commonly absolute numbers. The age-sex pyramid is built using annual birth and death data from the civil registration systems and census data every 10 years in the majority of developed nations. The only reliable source of information for age-sex population pyramids in nations with inadequate civil registration system is the census. Now, there is a lower limit to this crude death rate as well. The demographers have shown through decades of CDR calculations that there is typically a lower limit of approximately 5 per 1,000. Any crude death rate that is less than 5 per 1,000 should be handled very carefully. Let us now move on to the next index or measure of mortality, that is the age-specific death rate. The age-specific death rate, or the ASDR, is a critical demographic indicator that provides detailed insights into mortality patterns within different age groups of a population. This metric, it goes beyond the crude death rate by breaking down mortality into specific age categories. Now there are two important features of ASDR. Understanding how death rates vary by age allows demographers and public health professionals to identify critical age groups which are vulnerable and design targeted interventions. The age-specific mortality rates, they play a key role in disease surveillance and control. Monitoring death rates within specific age groups can reveal patterns of infectious diseases, chronic conditions, and other health threats, which would then naturally guide public health responses. This data informs the development of public health policies as well. It guides decisions related to immunization programs, maternal and child health initiatives, and other interventions tailored to specific age-related health challenges. The age-specific death rate, or the ASDR, is calculated by dividing the number of deaths in a specific age group by the mid-year population of that age group, usually expressed per 1,000 population. The mathematical expression is, as you can see on your screen, on the numerator we have the total deaths in a year for a specific age group, and on the denominator we have the mid-year total population of a specific age group, which is then again multiplied by 1,000. The next measure of mortality, which is the infant mortality rate, or the IMR, is a vital demographic indicator that is typically calculated as the ratio of live births to infant deaths, that is deaths of children under 1 year old or in their first year of life. Now these deaths are registered in a given calendar year. The ratio is then multiplied by 1,000 to calculate the ratio or the rate for every 1,000 live births. This metric, it serves as a powerful tool for evaluating the health and well-being of newborns, reflecting both the quality of maternal and infant health care, and also the broader socio-economic conditions that prevail in that particular region. As you can see from the figure, the infant mortality rate, or the IMR, can be mathematically expressed as the number of infant deaths registered during that particular year over the number of live births, which is then again multiplied by 1,000. Now for example, suppose in a particular year there were around 2,500 live births in a community, and during the same year there were 25 infant deaths, that is death of children under 1 year old. Now using the formula for IMR, the result would be 10. Now this means that on average 10 infants out of every 1,000 born alive did not survive their first year of life in that given community during that specific year. Now it is important to note that this is a simplified example, and in real world scenarios infant mortality rates are often calculated over longer periods to account for variations and to provide a more stable estimate. But why do we calculate infant mortality rates? First off, one of the most accurate measures of a population's access to medical and health services is the infant mortality rate. Second, a change in infant mortality rate generally changes the population's age distribution. Third, additionally, a number of empirical studies have demonstrated a statistical relationship of some kind between the birth rate and IMR. As a result, the IMR, or the infant mortality rate, emerges as one of the crucial variables to comprehend the mechanism underlying population fertility changes. Now, if you delve into the empirical data regarding IMR across the globe, the UN Interagency Group for Child Mortality Estimation, it suggests that the infant mortality rate per 1,000 live births in 2021 had a global average of 28. Among all the countries, Sierra Leone had the highest infant mortality rate with 78, followed by Central African Republic at 75, and Somalia and Nigeria jointly at 71 deaths per year. Monaco, on the other hand, had the least infant mortality rate with 1, followed by San Marino. According to the Indian census of 2011, the infant mortality of India has been 33. It is a sharp decline from 129 per 1,000 live births in 1971 and 80 per 1,000 live births in 1991. The Central Bureau of Health Intelligence in India estimated that in 2016 the infant mortality rate would be 34, where the males stood at 33 and the female IMR was at 36. As you can see from the figure, there is a discrepancy not in terms of gender but also in ways of living. The urban and rural population is quite distinct from each other when portraying infant mortality. However, the infant mortality rate only provides a rough estimate of the actual risk of death between the time of birth and the child's first birthday, because it does not specifically differentiate between the age when the deaths have occurred. This can be considered as its major limitation. Now, to compensate, there are a few novel terms that have been introduced in demographic studies across the globe. The first one is the neonatal mortality rate. It is the number of deaths that occur for children below the age of 1 month. The post-neonatal mortality rate, on the other hand, is when the death of the infant takes place between the age of 1 month and 11 months. And finally, we have the perinatal mortality rate, which can be calculated in 2 ways. As you can see, the first way is by taking the ratio of the sum of deaths under 1 week and fetal deaths over the number of live births. It is then multiplied by 1000, that is per 1000 live births. The second way is to find the ratio of the sum of neonatal deaths and fetal deaths on the numerator to the number of live births as the denominator. This is then naturally multiplied by 1000. Now here, fetal deaths, also known as stillbirths, refer to the death of a fetus in the womb before it is delivered. These are pregnancies in which the fetus at any stage of gestation shows no signs of life, such as heartbeat or movement when born. The fetal death rate is typically calculated as the number of fetal deaths per 1000 live births and fetal deaths combined. The formula for fetal deaths can be seen on your screen now. Let us now look at the under 5 mortality rate. The under 5 mortality rate refers to the number of deaths of children under the age of 5 per 1000 live births in a given year. It is a key indicator of the overall health and well-being of children in a population and is often used as a measure of the effectiveness of the healthcare system and public health intervention of that particular region. But due to the extremely different age distribution of mortality risks in children, the standard statistical procedure converts the mortality rate for children under 5 into a probability of dying before the age of 5, presuming that the children would be exposed to the age-specific mortality rates of that particular area. As you can see on your screen, the under 5 mortality rate can be calculated by the ratio of the number of deaths in children aged less than 5 in a specified time period over the number of live births in the same time period, which is of course multiplied by 1000 because it is calculated per 1000 live births in that particular time period. Now therefore, in technical terms, the under 5 mortality rate is a probability of death expressed as a rate per 1,000 live births rather than a rate in itself. That is, the number of deaths divided by the population at risk during a given period of time. Now if you look at the source of data, in theory, the annual data on under 5 mortality at the national and subnational levels can be continuously produced by the civil registration systems. In areas with fully operational civil registration systems, the number of deaths by age and registered births can be used to directly calculate the age-specific mortality rates among children and infants. However, the quality and coverage of civil registration systems are frequently questioned in developing and underdeveloped nations, leading to incomplete and biased vital statistics. Deaths that happen to young children are not as likely to be reported as deaths that happen to adults for specific reasons. Deaths are typically only registered in situations where there are benefits associated with it. For instance, to assert land ownership and inheritance, or to receive payment from the dependents in places where civil registration is not universal. The estimates of child mortality can be produced using direct or indirect methods in nations with imperfect registration systems through 10-year censuses. In the direct method, respondents are asked about deaths that have occurred in the household within a given time frame. More frequently, an indirect approach is employed based on inquiries made to female respondents regarding children born and those who are still alive. An estimate of under 5 mortality is then obtained using model life tables and the brass type methods. However, since the census only takes place once every 10 years by definition, it's not a reliable source of data for continuous observation. It does, however, have the very helpful function of offering a different source that can be used to verify information obtained from vital registration regarding the quantity of recorded child deaths and consequently the overall level of child mortality. Household surveys, which use both direct and indirect methods, are the most common source of data on child mortality in the majority of developing nations. Similar to the census, the indirect method asks questions about children who have ever been born and children who are still alive. For each birth a woman has had during her lifetime, a thorough birth history is obtained using the direct method. The histories of these births are then translated into child mortality rates that are appropriate for a given time frame. The next measure of mortality is cause-specific death rates. Now, to analyze the death statistics influenced by the cause of death, cause-specific death ratios and rates are employed. When comparing the causes of deaths of two populations or tracking the time trend of a specific population, the two tools, that is the CSD ratios and rates, come in very handy. These are also used to determine how sensitive the expectation of life at a given age is to changes in mortality due to one or more causes, and to create multiple decrement life tables by causes of death. The examination of mortality by cause gives researchers, planners, and policymakers a comprehensive understanding of the overall health and mortality situation that exists in a community or a nation. Simply put, the cause-specific death ratio is the ratio of the number of deaths linked to a particular cause to all deaths that occur over a given period of time. To calculate the specific death rate, divide the number of deaths in a given year by the total mid-year average population. Mathematically can be expressed as DC by D, which is multiplied by 1000, where DC represents the death occurred due to the cause C, and the D represents the total number of deaths. This D is the summation of deaths due to all causes. Finally, this ratio is multiplied by 1000. Next, we have the comparative mortality index, which is the fifth measure of mortality. It evaluates the ratio of the current death rate in a region to the death rate in that region during a set of previous years or standard years. It considers both how the population's age distribution has changed over time and how the death schedule has changed. The next indicator or the measure is the standard mortality ratio. The one kind of death rate that is indirectly standardized is the SMR. The general level of mortality, or the mortality due to a specific cause in an industry or occupation, is compared to the general level of mortality or the mortality due to a specific cause in the population as a whole. When the age-specific death rate for the entire population was dominant in a given occupation or industry, it is defined as the ratio of observed deaths to the expected number of deaths in that particular industry. Mathematically, the standard mortality ratio can be expressed as shown in your screen. The denominator represents the expected number of deaths in an industry or occupation. As you can see, SMR is D upon summation of P into age-specific death rates. Here D is the total observed death at a certain age in a certain occupation. P is the population at a certain age in that particular occupation. And finally, ASDR is the age-specific death rate at a certain age in total population. The seventh indicator is the average life expectancy. The average life expectancy at birth is a reliable indicator of mortality, since it is unaffected by the population's age distribution. The term average expectation of life refers to the average number of years that a group of newborns, those born in the same year, may be expected to live under certain conditions. Here, each group is being subjected to the age-specific mortality rates that are in effect in a particular nation at the time the measure is being used. Now, according to a report produced by the United Nations Population Division and consolidated by the World Bank, the life expectancy in the year 2021 for the whole world was 71. Hong Kong and Macau were at the top of the rankings with 85, whereas Chad in Africa stood at the bottom with 53. For India, according to the Central Bureau of Health Intelligence, the expectancy of life at birth between 2012 to 2015 was 68.3. The World Bank, on the other hand, suggests India to have a quantified life expectancy of 67.24. The eighth indicator is the maternal mortality ratio. The maternal mortality ratio is the number of women per 100,000 live births in a given year who die from childbearing related causes. Maternal deaths are defined as those resulting from difficulties during pregnancy and childbirth. Mathematically, as you can see from the figure, it is the ratio of the number of maternal deaths to the number of live births in year multiplied by 100,000. This is per 1 lakh live births. A report by World Health Organization collected by the World Bank suggested that the global maternal mortality ratio per 100,000 live births in 2020 was 223. That is, out of 100,000 live births, 223 pregnant women lost their lives due to pregnancy. In Indian context, the numbers lie at 103. The figure shown on your screen indicates the steep decline in the maternal mortality since the turn of the millennium. Now, in summarizing, what I would like to discuss is mortality and its exact measurement are essential parts of demographic analysis that provide deep understandings of population dynamics and health. Mortality indicators are effective instruments that direct public health policies, impact distribution of resources, and mold interventions to enhance overall health. To better understand mortality patterns and address the various health challenges that the communities face, it is imperative that measurements methods be continuously improved and that accurate data collection be maintained. The diligent study of mortality continues to be a vital component of our efforts to build stronger, healthier communities as we negotiate the complexities of population health.